And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Wednesday morning flying weather graphic. A lot of IFR out over the Bering Sea. Marginal VFR St. Lawrence Island through the strait, and then back into IFR here. Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. And a fair amount of IFR here up into southern Alaska and North Gulf Coast, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and IFR areas of the southeast coast as well. And for the afternoon hours, big improvement up here to the north, becoming VFR all the way out toward the Arctic coast, or at least across the north slope. Marginal VFR areas of the coastline up there, and some marginal VFR now extending down through the Bering Strait, so some pretty good improvement here to the west as well. And marginal VFR, Talkeetna Mountains, northern Sitna Valley up into the Alaska Range here, and then some of that into the 40-mile country there, Tanana Valley, Upper Tanana. And IFR, Gulf of Alaska, with some areas still along the east side of the Kenai Peninsula in toward Passage Canal, and then over toward Valdez, and some IFR over the northern Panhandle with marginal conditions, with some VFR breaking out over the inside waters. And northern Bering Sea seeing some improvement, VFR St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, IFR here for the Pribilofs down across much of the Aleutians, IFR holding there on the east side of Kodiak Island. And then that expands considerably here, pushing up towards southern Cook Inlet, up the east side of the Kenai Peninsula, and some IFR reappears over the eastern interior here on both sides of the Alaska Range. Stays pretty much VFR out to the west, marginal VFR from the Brooks Range, central western Arctic coast IFR, and of course a lot of IFR for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and eastward again in toward the northern Panhandle and also out along the coastline. Then for the Thursday afternoon time, have a pretty active front here, keeping IFR in along the central and north coast of the Panhandle, IFR back across the Gulf of Alaska in toward the Barren Islands, Fogneck Island, northern Kodiak there, and a little bit IFR in Prince William Sound, otherwise marginal for Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, VFR for the Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, Kuskokwim Valley there, northward up across the Brooks Range to the Arctic coast, and IFR for the afternoon, covering much of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and still some extending up in toward the east side of St. Lawrence Island. Passes for Anaktuvuk and Adigan. Look for considerable improvement during the day with any IFR during the morning hours, possibly becoming VFR for both passes in the afternoon toward evening. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal. Rainy, marginal VFR may become VFR in the afternoon. Windy, occasional marginal VFR, as is Isabel and Mentasta, still looking pretty marginal, could become VFR for Mentasta in the afternoon. And Tanita, marginal. Portage, IFR, maybe a little bit better here on the western entrance. And for Chilkoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, pretty chilly air up here over the Chukchi Sea and along and north of the Brooks Range with the 2,000-foot line right through there, and then 8,000 feet here over southern Alaska, and then that cold upper level low pulling eastward there. So gradually freezing levels recovering a little bit there for the southeast coast, and about 8,000 to 10,000 feet out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And icing with the moisture here in the interior. Look for considerable moderate rime or mixed icing along and south of the Yukon River into the Tanana Valley, central interior areas, and light to isolated moderate icing possible here for the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay area into Kodiak, and then back out here over the western Bering, really not affecting anything out there. And so looking at the jet stream here, trough off the eastern Arctic coast, or near Mackenzie Bay actually, extending back to another low over the Russian Far East. So west-southwest flow, 65 to 80 knots there on the south side of that. East-northeast, 75 knots along the eastern Arctic coast. Pretty light winds here over the Bering Sea and across southern Alaska. But you can see 100-knot northwest winds there cutting across western Dixon Entrance, but mainly over the northern Queen Charlotte Islands. And for the 9,000-foot winds, Low pressure here near the Alaska Peninsula. East winds in a band there. North up to 40 knots for the Atka Island area, then east 40 knots into Bristol Bay, southeast 40 for Kodiak Island. And pretty good southwest winds, west-southwesterlies, 40 to 45 knots over the central and eastern interior. Pretty light though for the Panhandle with high pressure building in at this elevation, 3,000 feet. Light winds for the southeast coast, the Gulf of Alaska, all the interior. And with this low tracking eastward here, southeast winds 35 knots, strongest around Sitkinak Island, a little bit lighter for Kodiak, and then much lighter up around Cook Inlet. Northeast winds 35 to 40 knots there from the northwest coast through the strait to western St. Lawrence Island. And from there, looking at turbulence, we've got some possible moderate turbulence here, or considerable moderate for St. Lawrence Island, light to isolated moderate up through the Bering Strait, western Seward Peninsula, Kivalina up to Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, maybe Point Lay, and also could be some mechanical light to isolated moderate turbulence here for the Copper River Basin, and a pretty good area here for Cook Inlet, Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, especially Kamishak Bay.